when you're listening to a song and say that you have drums, bass, piano, keyboards, and then there's guitar, you want to start to understand like what the different kind of frequencies that all of those instruments are filling in. And for example, it's like, so let's think about bass. What are the frequencies that the bass are going to be adding? Very low stuff, so it's usually around like 100, 200, 300 hertz kind of area. So the reason that that stuff is important is like if I'm playing in a full band with a bunch of people, if I'm playing chords like this, if there's a bass player, you're going to miss all of those low notes that I'm playing, and it's also going to get in the way of the bass player, and he's going to be kind of annoyed that you're on his territory. So that's the kind of situation then if you do something like this. So understanding the different registers and timbres of what your guitar is doing with everybody else ends up being super important. It can be the same thing if you have like really high synthesizers that are playing something. You want to be a little bit below them because you want to make sure that everything you're doing is kind of popping out in the right way. Unless it's just meant to be some super supportive texture that's meant to kind of like blend into what everything else is doing. You want to understand to find those like little holes that you can kind of pop in and out of depending on what everything else is doing. So part of that is like what I was just saying, if you're listening to production, thinking about little frequencies and thinking about like the different spaces that each instrument occupies. Like where does the bass occupy? Where does like synth usually occupy? If you have a singer, where do they usually occupy? Because the last thing you want to do is start stepping all over a singer. You'll never get asked back to like do a session or something, So these are all things to start to pay attention to when you're listening to recording. You're trying to understand like why a great part that sounds awesome, why it's awesome.